If you believe the polling that's out today, that has been a significant issue in this election, and much of that fear is driven by the Labor Party's persistent use of the very misleading $600 billion figure that was concocted by the Smart Energy Council. Now, this is a renewables lobby group. It's linked to the Labor Party, and yes, yet their data is used as gospel by so many in the media and by the government. Now, the Smart Energy Council has really refused to explain how they came to this figure, how they put their study together, what was behind their modelling. Gary, the $600 billion figure, it's even a lot higher than Chris Bowen's favourite organisation, the CSIRO's modelling. But you've got to say the strategy has been effective. If the polling is accurate, voters are scared of the cost of nuclear.
Yeah, no, they can't handle the truth, so they go with the lie. And look, Rita, in the end, the three of us have all reported on news items over a long period of time. We've all seen all this stuff before. Where's the inquiring mind amongst journos? Why have journos turned into PR agents? George Orwell said, if they're not criticising you, it's public relations. You know, there should be a cynical journalist at work somewhere in Australia that's actually asking the hard questions. The facts are that nuclear is 1,000 times more efficient use of any land than all of these wind turbines and solar panels. They have to take up so much more space, and they produce a lot more electricity for the amount of space they take up. And every other country around the world is going towards nuclear power. We're not. So I just think whoever wins on Saturday, nuclear is going to be on the agenda. It's going to happen. It has to happen, because we're not going to be able to make anything in Australia. We're not going to be able to be self-sufficient on any front. We're not going to be able to defend ourselves. We're going to be relying on China to make our warships. I mean, spare me. Is this how bad Australia has got to get? Have we got to go further down the tubes for people in Australia to finally understand how bad this government has been? And, well, whether the opposition win or lose on Saturday, we are going to go nuclear, because we just simply have to.
We have to, but how could the Prime Minister or Chris Bowen possibly prosecute that case, Nick, with everything they have said about nuclear energy, all the scare campaigns they've run, all the claims about how it is not sustainable, it's not commercial, it could never possibly happen without bankrupting the economy. How can they do a 180 and introduce nuclear after all that?
Well, they're stuck, and if they're asked a few hard questions, they might be in a bit of bother, because the question is, how can you do without nuclear, right? If we're not allowed to use coal anymore, what's your base load? I mean, they're trying to tell us that wind and solar can be base load. I mean, they're denying the physics just in the same way that the trans lobby deny the biology. You know, you just can't get round those facts that intermittent, the power that doesn't set in a neat 50 hertz cycle is dangerous in the system. It's not just not very helpful, it is positively dangerous, as we've seen this week from Spain, where their energy grid decided to take a siesta in the middle of the afternoon.
Now, we will get back to Spain, but Gary, just lastly on the Smart Energy Council, they enjoy charity status. Does that pass the pup test?
Well, I don't think so. And if anybody is going to go around and call themselves smart anything, they're really not smart. You know, the Labor Party have lied and conveniently lied and lied and lied and lied. And if Australians want to back the lie, then I guess that's what we've got to suffer. But there's going to be a lot of angry people on May 4th, whether it's going to be the Jedis or the Empire. I don't know what's going to win, but I think the Siths are going to be in control, and the Greens are going to have a lot more sway than they should when it comes to the way Australia's run. And we're just going to be ruined. This country is stuffed, and it's going to get more stuffed if the election goes the wrong way.
It certainly is a consequential election, and I think that's why it's so disappointing that it's been so lacklustre, really. We haven't had those great debates, those great ideological debates about energy, about population, about cultural issues. That, I think, has been what's disappointed a lot of people. I want to ask you about this clip of Anthony Albanese. It's getting a lot of attention online. It's a bit of an awkward little encounter with a Labor Party volunteer that the Prime Minister appears to brush off.
Excuse me. You kiss me, boss? Yeah. My husband, yeah. Sorry.
Now, the Liberals have seized on that footage and put out this social media ad.
Not keen to get stuck talking.
You kiss me, boss? Yeah. My husband, yeah. Sorry.
Nice to meet you, Victoria. How are you?
Authorised by Ahurst Liberal, Canberra.
Oh, Nick, that's a bit cheeky from the coalition, isn't it? I'm sure prime ministers, politicians have done that many times, brushed off somebody when they don't have the time to speak to them. Do you think they were being a bit harsh with the Prime Minister there?
Not at all, Rita, because this is the Prime Minister who says his story is no one left behind. Unless he decides to push them behind him. You know, it's completely against what he's saying. He's trying to tell us that Peter Dutton is a bully, that he's aggressive, that he just is, you know, bolshy, and we'll get completely the opposite from Peter Dutton, and yet from the Prime Minister, he gets very short-tempered, and he doesn't seem to care much about ordinary people, does he? I mean, he treated that woman like he seems to be treating most ordinary people over the cost of living and other issues which are really hurting people's lives. So, yeah, no, I thought it was pretty nasty behaviour from the Prime Minister.
Gary, I've got to say, if the situation was reversed, it was Peter Dutton treating a volunteer that way, the media would be in meltdown over it. And we've seen footage, Peter Credlin has played this on her program throughout the week, of the press pack being so hostile to Peter Dutton when questioning him, whilst they treat Albo like he's a mate. It is hard to deny, despite the fact that they're supposed to be impartial, unbiased journalists, not opinion leaders.
Yeah, we do opinion. That's what we do. I mean, I host radio on 4BC in Brisbane. I do opinion. You do opinion, Rita. I mean, this is what we do. But journalists that are basically still overcoming the shock of puberty are showing up to actually ask alternative prime ministers tough questions. They're reading it off their iPhone because their editor said, here, stupid work experience kid, go and ask somebody a tough question, because grown-ups won't ask these questions because grown-ups would actually filter it.
Now, Labor has managed to successfully make Medicare an issue at this election. They've whipped up a Medicare 2.0, and pollsters are saying that it's working, that the coalition's attempts to counter these attacks is not resonating with voters, and instead the coalition's counter promises on Medicare are being drowned out by Labor's scare campaign, warning of cuts under the opposition leader. Nick, this is surprising because if you look at the detail, Labor's own Medicare policy promises are being criticised by peak bodies like the National Association of General Practice Management. They say it's all smoke and mirrors. This notion that most patients will be able to see a doctor for free is a fantasy.
Well, exactly. What they've put forward is a hopeful statement that everybody will get Medicare for free, get doctors' visits for free, with no actual way of backing this up. So they haven't actually thought through the policy challenges. How do you get enough doctors? How do you get enough doctors in the right places at the right time? How do you get a doctor to work in the back of Burke on a Sunday afternoon when he's needed? You know, none of these things they address. It's just all about slogans, and they also, of course, conveniently brush over the fact there's been a massive drop in bulk billing rates since they came to power. Unprecedented fall over the last 3 years. And I'm not saying that's necessarily altogether their fault. There are structural things here about, you know, supply of doctors and so forth. But they won't address any of that. It's just a slogan, isn't it? So we can't expect them actually to achieve anything at all in government unless they're keeping all those plans secret somewhere.
Now, let's get back to those blackouts in Europe. We spoke about it earlier in the week. This is just an enormous crisis. 60 million people plunged into darkness. And just days before this mass blackout, Spain was celebrating its reliance on renewable energy. They're not celebrating anymore, Nick. What lessons can we take from what's happening in Europe right now?
Well, the number one lesson, of course, is we cannot possibly get to net zero this way In fact, we can't get there anyway, in my view. I agree with Tony Blair, the former Labour Prime Minister of Great Britain, who's told Keir Starmer, the current Labour Prime Minister, that he's dreaming with the idea of zero 2050. But putting that aside, I mean, what we've got here is just, it shows up that what we've been pushing into the system is junk energy. It really you cannot keep putting more and more renewables into the system and expect the grid to remain stable. That's what's happened in Spain. And it's funny to watch the renewable lobby here, Rita, I come up with all sorts of excuses. I read one article today in Renew Economy, which, as you know, is the sort of Pravda for the renewable industry. It's saying that, it was all Spain's fault because they didn't put in enough batteries. What, really? A country that size, with that population, they're going to keep the light on with batteries? Like, it's nuts. But these people, I don't know whether they're deluded or just driven by the money. But either way, they are completely stark staring bonkers. And as soon as we wake up to that as a country, the better it'll be.
Gary, it doesn't seem like we're going to be waking up to it anytime soon. This could have been an election that was fought on energy policy. It could have been a referendum on energy about whether most Australians value reliability and low cost, or whether their priority is emission cuts. And that would have been a real debate. And we didn't have it, Gary.
No, we didn't. And of course, every first week of every federal election for the last 40 years has been about Save Medicare. And then you move on to the real issues because no one's getting rid of Medicare. So I'll just say that. But look, the Prime Minister could have gone down the path of saying, I'm going to give you $275 off your power bill. Wait on, he tried that. He lied. We're going to... And by the way, that should be every power bill. I get one every quarter. So that was 4 by $275. Basically, $1,300 is what I was expecting off my power. But this race to renewables is a race to ruin. And that is the end of the story. Net zero is a nonsense. We're going to have net zero productivity, net zero chance of defending ourselves to the outside world because we have net zero chance of making anything in Australia. And in the end, what has happened in Spain and Portugal this week will happen on the east coast of Australia in coming years. It just will, because as more and more renewables go into the grid, and the only reason they're called renewable is they've got to be renewed every 10 years because the whole thing falls over. The wind turbines, the solar panels, the batteries, everything falls over. They're renewables because you've got to buy them again. That's why there's the big rort. The people making money out of it, they're not deluded. They know that they're going to follow the idiocy of people like Chris Bowen and Anthony Albanese all the way to their bank.
Yes, there's some very rich people getting even richer off renewables. Before you go, gentlemen, I just want to talk a little bit about US politics. We've had promises made, promises kept. Just 9 illegal immigrants were released into the US during President Trump's first 100 days in office, which he marked this week. That represents a 99.99% decrease in what's called gotaways. These gotaways are unlawful entrants who are not turned back, who are released into the country. Now, to contrast that to the same period last year under Joe Biden, there were 184,000 gotaways. Nick, resolving the illegal immigration crisis would have to be among Donald Trump's top achievements, and I don't think anyone expected him to get it done so quickly and so effectively.
No, because they never do, because the lovies will tell you this isn't possible. You know, you can't possibly do this. Just as they told the Tony Abbott that before the 2013 election. Oh, you can't turn back votes, it's impossible. Well, Tony Abbott did so and got the same result as Donald Trump, an immediate reduction to almost nothing of illegal immigration. As we know, the people smugglers who bring these people over watch the news very carefully. They would have known that they're in trouble with Donald Trump, and they've stopped sending people that way. They'll find another route, no doubt, possibly via Canada, perhaps. But you know, they're not going to use that border with Trump in power with the firm mindset he has on this issue.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for your time tonight.